Beginning today, the United States of America gets back control of its borders. We are going to get the bad ones out, the criminals and the drug dealers and gangs and gang members and cartel leaders. The day is over when they can stay in our country and wreak havoc.
President Trump announcing executive orders today to begin building a wall along our entire border with Mexico and to cut federal funding for sanctuary cities. Time to bring in our panel. Jonah Goldberg from the National Review, Eli Stokols, White House correspondent for Politico, and Charles Hurt from the Washington Times. Well, Eli, how much of this can the president do by executive order? Doesn't he need Congress to approve at least some of this wall project, which is going to cost more than $10 billion? And doesn't he need some congressional approval to cut all funding for sanctuary cities?
Yeah, I asked Sean Spicer about this today. How are you going to do this with existing funding? And they said, well, this is just sort of the beginning point. I mean, it's important for the president to show that he's following through on these campaign promises. And there's a sort of symbolic aspect to a lot of this. Now, it's consequential, obviously, that he's asking to do all this, but you're not going to add 5,000 ICE agents and build a wall along the entire southern border just using existing funds.
Do we have a sense of how much existing funds we're talking about that they have already in them?
No, I mean, they're going to try to collect more fines. They think there's some savings they can find, but nowhere close to billions of dollars that it will take just to build a wall, never mind hiring more people, building more detention centers. A lot of things they're sort of throwing out there today, and this is sort of just, you know, not really talking about how to pay for it, where the details will be in terms of how you force sanctuary cities, how you get the grants away from them. But this is the starting point. Symbolically, it does send a message.
Well, given, and we're going to get to the Democrat pushback today, isn't that going to be a real problem, particularly when you get to the Senate and the filibuster?
Yeah, they will need 60 votes somewhere. So, but, you know, Paul Ryan said he's open to some funding for a potential border wall, appropriating more money for DHS and for building this out. So it's possible, but they are going to have to work with some Democrats at some point because this is going to be subject to the filibuster.
Jonah, this isn't the end of it. The president is talking about signing more executive orders this week, limiting the number of refugees and even people just coming in on visas from countries that have a recent history of terrorism. Is this, in a sense, kind of a cleaned up version of the Muslim ban that he advanced in the campaign?
Oh, I think so. I mean, sure, it's a way to do it in a more responsible way, which is to say, you know, to just simply say you're going to ban Muslims is, I would argue, unconstitutional, but more importantly, unworkable. What are you going to do? Make ticket agents at every airport become experts in Sharia and start quiz people? I mean, it just makes no sense. But I do think, you know, more broadly, Donald Trump was given a gift by the Obama administration because Obama worked his pen and phone so assiduously. He created an enormous amount of flexibility for Donald Trump to do much the same thing. The interesting thing, or sort of ridiculous thing that we're hearing a lot today, is that somehow conservatives or Republicans are hypocritical for supporting Trump doing these executive orders when we criticized Barack Obama for doing the same thing. But all of these executive orders so far are pretty much within the normal authority of the President of the United States. He hasn't legislated. He hasn't done anything that were the substance of the criticisms against Obama. No one was against executive orders as executive orders. They're against using them as a substitute for going to Congress. And I think he will go to Congress. And my guess is, well, I think you're absolutely right that this is going to be a tough fight. This is a great political fight for Donald Trump to have, to go to Congress and say, well, look, the Democrats don't want to secure the border. That's a fight that's good for you.
The Republicans will be on the side of protecting the country and enforcing the borders, and Democrats won't. Let's talk about that, though, Charlie, because Mr. Trump's actions this week to crack down on immigration, both legal and illegal, have already provoked a sharp backlash on Capitol Hill. Let's look first at what the president said in an interview today with ABC News, and then congressional Democratic reaction.
So the American taxpayer will pay for the wall at first?
All it is we'll be reimbursed at a later date from whatever transaction we make from Mexico.
The American people are going to be stuck with a $25 billion bill to build a wall that most likely is going to be ineffective.
So, Charlie, how is this going to play out on Capitol Hill?
Well, I think it's terrific. The Democrats are now worried about overspending here in Washington. That's a nice turn. But the truth of the matter is, while Donald Trump's tone on all of this and his emphasis on enforcing all of these laws is a dramatic departure, I think, from previous presidents of either party, the vast majority, I would say actually probably everything that he mentioned today is already, at least in some form, in some broad brush form, in part of the canon of federal law. The idea of building a fence along the southern border is already part of the law. The idea that we're supposed to deport illegals that are in this country is already part of the law. Now there are some things that are obviously going to drive people crazy, you know, the open borders crowd crazy, such as this. One of the things that he included in this was that instead of taking illegals that are caught at the border or wherever and returning them to the country of origin, he says, no, now we can, and this is part of law, we can return them wherever they came from. So that means if they're from Honduras, you can send them back to Mexico because they came through Mexico, and that's a very hot button issue, but probably something that you know that is going to be, you know, that will stop, you know, put up the bright neon sign that Barack Obama had up that said, you know, vacancy, you know, welcome. You know, it will turn that to don't come.
Eli, another part of this, of course, is the second part of candidate Trump's pledge, which was we're going to build a wall, and we're going to make Mexico pay for it. And apparently the backlash, now that this is really on the docket, there's talk that the Mexican president might cancel his visit here.
Right. This isn't just about immigration. It will bleed into other agenda items. Trade. The president wants to renegotiate NAFTA and have a relationship, working relationship with Mexico. When you politicize this to this degree, you know, Mexico sees his tweets. People in Mexico hear what's going on in Washington right now, and this does not improve relationships, you know, back and forth across the border that will affect other issues. I think what's interesting, and Charlie got at this a little bit, but President Trump, by winning, did change the politics of immigration. For a long time, a lot of Republicans and Democrats shared the view that you couldn't win with this platform, that Hispanic voters would run the other way, and that you couldn't be this extreme on immigration and win. Trump has changed that, and he has did that in part by expressing empathy for the victims of crimes committed by undocumented immigrants who are here. Part of this executive order is for the DHS to publicize monthly the crimes committed by undocumented immigrants in this country. And I think what Democrats and everybody has to give Trump his due on is his masterful messaging on this and a number of other issues, whether you see through some of it, whether some of it's based on flimsy facts or whatever. You have to give him some credit for drawing attention to things and sort of flipping this around. He gets asked questions about, what will you say to Hispanic families who are worried about their parents being deported? And Sean Spicer says, well, he has a lot of empathy for that. He's a family man. But what he'd prefer to talk about is empathy for victims of these crimes. The government is now directed to publicize information about that. They're very aware of the need to sort of push their narrative.
All right.